All right, I'm back, and I went and grabbed another A3 Mini that I haven't used yet to make sure what was in the box. And so yes, in the box you do have. Well, here's your box. You do have the A3 Mini itself in this little cellophane or anti-static bag. You do have one of those cables, micro to micro USB. Okay, and then we have the little adapter here, and a couple assorted servo leads, and then some double-sided sticky pads that we'll use to mount the A3. Okay, so all that is in the box. I apologize. I couldn't remember if it was or not, but now we know it is. Okay, and then I'll pull this one out while we're talking about things so we can understand a little bit better what we're looking at. So the A3 Mini is, like it sounds, whoops, very small, which is great for a little plane like this. If you want to use a stabilizer board like this. All right, and we see it's labeled here with some names for each of these ports, kind of like a receiver is. There's the USB here on the end, and this little button here, and an LED right there. Okay, so that's pretty much all it is. We're going to end up double-sided sticky taping it to our plane once it's all configured and ready to go. Okay, so our Outlaw only has two ailerons and an elevator, so we aren't going to need all of these ports here, but I want to point out a couple of important ones to you and how you're going to use them. Okay. Let's bring our receiver into the scene here. So whether you have ER5, ER6, different variations, a PWM receiver of some type, okay, you'll be able to take this PWM receiver, and once you have it configured for S-Bus, you'll have a plug going to that S-Bus port, okay, which will be channel number 2, okay, the signal wires on top. And this receiver will get plugged right into where it says serial RX there on the very bottom row of pins. Okay, that will allow the A3 Mini to receive the signals from your receiver, which of course receive them from your transmitter when you're controlling the plane. So that's nice because that's the only connection we need between our receiver and our A3 Mini. If you really want a longer one of these jumper wires, I can try to look for one for you, or we can even make one. They're not that hard to make, but the default length is pretty good and should get you able to put the receiver in A3 in different spots in the plane. Since most of you will probably have a receiver of this type, this PWM type, I could possibly recommend the receivers. Most of these, unless you have like an ER8 or one with a lot of channels, they'll probably fit pretty nicely on the other side of the fuselage there, and you can tuck it back in, or mount it the other way or something like that and kind of tuck it back in if you want to mount it on the top. Of course, you could also mount the receiver in the bottom area of the plane somewhere. Okay, I'm going to zoom out a little bit more, sorry. In the bottom area of the plane, and you could have that cable kind of run up through the wing somehow, poke a little hole and run it up through the wing, and still have your A3 Mini on top. I'd recommend having the A3 Mini's USB port accessible when you mount it, because we can do later changes and set up configurations and things like that using that port. So that should be accessible, whereas once your receiver is ready to go, it doesn't really need to be accessed typically. You might want to pull it out later for another plane, but you should need to access it a lot while you're actively flying this plane. Okay, so there's our receiver A3 setup there. Okay, and so that's all you need for the receiver connections. Now, on the rest of the A3 connections, we'll be plugging in our other items. So our THR on the top is our throttle. That's our ESC. Okay, so our ESC lead will plug right into there. We have our aileron 2, rudder, elevator, and aileron 1. We don't have a rudder. Okay, we do have two ailerons, so 1 and 2, doesn't matter which one you put it in. Okay, and then we do have an elevator, so we'll plug the elevator in there. So we'll just have one empty plug where the rudder is missing, and we'll have an aileron in each aileron, elevator, and throttle. Okay, and so I'm going to show you those on my plane. It's a little hard to see, but again, back in everything, kind of see all those plugs plugged in. I know it's the white balance on this camera is not doing so hot right now, but back tucked in there, the A3's got all the wires plugged in on this particular plane. Okay. So just to show you kind of what this looks like when you have it all set up, I guess we can do a little demo here. Okay, I'm going to turn my transmitter on first. We always do that first. All my switches. Okay, I'm going to plug my battery in. Okay, now I really should take that prop off. Okay, please don't have props on in the classroom. Okay. A3 is now booted up. It is in manual mode, which we'll talk about later. Basically, in this mode, I have full manual control of the airplane. Okay. My throttle cut is on right now, so my throttle doesn't work. Okay, but if I were to engage that, there we go. Okay, engine back off. All right, so that's my full manual control. The modes I have set up that I'll recommend for you in class is manual mode. Okay, the A3 is basically doing nothing in this case. They're called normal mode, where the plane will kind of help you with wind gusts and things like that. You can hear the servos moving around by themselves, but it doesn't self-level the plane, so it's not going to level out for you, but it's going to help with windy conditions, and also this plane is quite twitchy, so it can help smooth things out a little bit. Okay, it's also a small plane. And then the third mode is stabilized, or Hobby Eagle calls it angle mode, I believe. And this is where it self-levels. So if I tilt the plane this way, it's going to be hard to see, but this aileron is moving down and this one is moving up, which would make the plane go back to level. Okay. Also, if I move the, let's see if I can't turn it sideways, the camera's too close to the table, but if I were to go nose down, the elevator comes up and would then pull up and level out the plane. If I go nose up, the elevator goes down to push the nose of the plane down and levels out the plane. So basically we have a self-leveling setup here, all right? And then our throttle is just our throttle, okay? So that's kind of what we're shooting for with the setup in class of those three modes, okay? And that'll allow you to fly the plane in those modes, whatever mode you like, okay? Well, at the same time, maintaining control with your own rates and expo, which we'll set up on the plane from the get-go, and you'll have a little bit of experience with that from the PicaSim as well. So we'll break there, and I'll be right back.